All right, team, welcome back for another week of our movement remix here at Third Space Movement. I'm Dan. I'm going to be taking you through the next 20-30 minutes. So just go ahead, find a little bit of space where you have some room maybe to crawl kind of side to side, about 5 or 6 feet on either side. We are going to continue on with some of the stuff that we've been working on, some of those low locomotion patterns, so the crawling. We're going to go back into that monkey crawl today, and we're going to use that position to get in and out of some low cartwheels. So it's going to be super fun. I'm really excited to get started with everyone. So let's just go ahead like we normally do. Just get nice and mobilized first. So we're just going to start to move around a little. We're going to start from standing, and we're going to work our way from the ground up. So right now I'm just going to bounce on my left foot. We're just going to take that right foot out in front, and we're just going to just do some nice little ankle circles. So I'm trying to make that as smooth as possible. Drawing that big circle with the toes, and we'll reverse directions. Take your time, see if you have any kind of missing angles there. That's kind of hard to control. And we'll spend a little bit more time, focus on trying to smooth it out. And we'll set that foot down. We'll shift our weight over, and we'll get into that left side. Nice and smooth. We'll reverse direction. Nice little balance drill at the same time. And then we'll go ahead, we'll relax. So from here, we're just going to go hands on top of the thighs, and we're just going to move those knees. Again, just following that circle in reverse direction. You're just going to shake it out. Just traveling up to those hips. So feet are hip width apart. And again, we'll switch directions. And then we'll come on back to the center. So from here, let's work a little bit on that spine. I'm going to just show you from the side here. We're going to just think kind of like spilling over like a rag doll. I'm going to start first with that head. I'm going to tuck that chin. I'm going to start to roll that spine down. My shoulders start to round forward, and keep a soft little bend to those knees as I just start to roll myself down. Again, bend those knees as much as you need to. Just find a moment here where you can relax at the bottom. When we come up, we're going to, again, think of rolling ourselves up. So I'm going to start at those hips first. I'm going to see if I can start to tuck those hips under. As I start to roll myself back up. Notice how I stay hollowed out. My shoulders start to come back. And then the last piece is that head. And then we'll go again, tucking that chin. Starting to round through the upper back, through the shoulders. I'm kind of spilling over top, one piece at a time. When you get to that bottom, bend those knees if you need to. So you can just relax that weight a little bit. And now we're going to stay engaged as we start to roll back up. Starting to tuck that tailbone underneath. Starting to roll ourselves up. And back to our tall standing position. From here, we're just going to cross those arms. Again, find that slight little rounded position forward as we start to tilt to the side. Opening up. We'll circle one way. Circle back the opposite way. And again. And one more time each direction. Good. So now we're just going to find our way down onto our mat. From here, we're in a nice little tabletop position, and we're going to keep working into that mid-spine a little bit. And we're going to think about rotation through here. So my hips stay in place, and I'm really just focusing on rotating through that mid-spine. The position we're going to use is our tabletop position, and from here I'm going to thread one arm through the center. I'm going to reach, and then I'm going to open up opposite direction. So now I'm going to rotate, reaching towards the sky, and then again coming through, threading that arm through, and opening up. And one more time. Arm threads through. And we're going to reach and rotate up towards the ceiling. We're going to switch sides, so I'm going to stabilize. I might need to slightly shift that hand in towards the center a little bit. We'll take that opposite hand again. I'm going to start to thread it through. Rotate, try to stack those shoulders, reach for the ceiling. And here we go for 3. Rotating, opening up. And 4, last one. So we'll come back into our tabletop position. We'll tuck those toes, and now I'm going to lift those hips for the sky. So I'm going to push the hips back. I can keep the knees slightly bent, feet are hip width apart, hands are shoulder width apart, fingers nice and active so they're spread nice and wide. I'm going to push the ground away and try to pull my chest through. And then from here, we're just going to alternate one heel down at a time. The whole time I'm trying to be active, pushing through the shoulders. Trying to keep that tailbone reaching for the sky. And we'll just walk it out a couple more times. Good. So now we're going to work in and out of that A-frame position. From my tabletop, I'm going to tuck my back toes, drive those hips for the sky, and then I'm going to alternate stepping up into a nice long lunge. So I might need to step that front foot out to the side a little bit, and then I'm going to plant the opposite hand across from the foot, and we're going to again work that rotation. So I'm going to stack the shoulders, opening up, replace the hand. I'm going to step back into that A-frame, and then I'm going to go to the opposite side. So opposite hand's planted, I'm always turning towards the knee, the front knee that's up, so I can rotate that shoulder, stack, open up, and then again, we're going to alternate sides here. Remembering to go back into that A-frame. And then again, one more time each side. I'm going to hold for a second as we step up into our lunge. Rotate open. Hand plants. Driving the hips for the ceiling. Opposite side. Rotate. Opening up. And then we're just going to finish into that A-frame. And we'll just drop those knees and come into a seated position. Okay, so now from the seated position, we're going to work opening up into that seated kind of figure 4 position. I'm going to take that right leg, we're going to step it out to the side. So my toe should be pointed sideways here. From here, I'm going to take my weight and start to lean it slightly forward. So my knees tracking over the toes. We're going to try to keep that heel down onto the ground. I'm going to hold that for a couple seconds here, shift back, and then we're going to the opposite side. So again, I'm opening up the hips to that 90. again, I can shift forward, but not so much that that heel comes up. I want to be able to keep it down. So if I'm back here, that's totally cool. If I can push it a little bit more, and that ankle allows me, then I can come forward a little bit more as well. So shift back. We're going to do one more time on each side. So opening up, shifting that weight. Come back to our kneeling position and opposite side. So from here, we're going to open up both sides into our low squat position. We'll be spending quite a bit of time in this position today. So for now, let's just see if we can kind of sink into those hips a little bit. I'll block those knees, pry them slightly out with those elbows. Again, both heels are down on the ground. And I'm just going to keep that chest nice and tall. And then just relax into a couple breaths down here. So 2 options for the next movement. We're going to work a little bit of internal rotation. So I can start in our seated position with my hands behind, propping that chest up, and I'm going to let the knee fall into the center, open up, and the opposite side. If my low squat's a comfortable position for me, I can play here where I can still prop myself up, let one knee drop into the center, and then switch. So again, notice that this foot that's still planted down, the heel is going to stay down. And if I'm super comfortable here, I can just do it from my squat position with no hands. Still thinking of controlling it down, prying that knee back open, control, and then pry. So any of those positions, whatever's comfortable for now, that's where you should hang out. So it's all that rotation at the hip. Okay. So now, from my position down here, what I'm going to do is we're going to get into a little bit of pushing. So we're going to start to strengthen that movement as we get into our crawl positions. So from our low squat, I'm just going to shift myself over to one side, and I'm going to think about taking my ear down towards the ground. So the hand that's on that same side, I'm going to think about that as my main pushing arm. And the position is going to be thinking about getting that elbow pointing towards the sky as I come down, and then I shift back up. So here. So you might feel like you need to bring that foot in a little bit to just kind of create a little bit of space. If you can't get that ear all the way down to the ground, that's totally cool. Here, we're just going to start to load it and push back up. So wherever you get to in that pushing range, whether it be up here or whether you can get all the way down, that's all good. And now, let's go ahead and stand up and take a little break from that. So our next movement, again, is going to get us down really close to the ground, kind of in that squat position again. A little bit different. We're going to be thinking about stepping out to the side to get into that lunge, so it just basically looks like a side lunge, but this is going to be our Cossack squat. So I'm going to take a fairly wide stance here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift my weight over onto one side. And again, all those same rules apply. I want to keep that heel down onto the ground, and I want to try to keep that knee tracking over those toes. So my toes might be turned out a little bit more, and that's totally cool. but just notice that my knee's still tracking over here, not collapsing in. So as I start to shift myself over, I'm going to start to drop those hips. The leg, the trailing leg, the one that stays straight, I'm going to try to rotate at the hip to turn those toes towards the ceiling. So it's not still down here. I'm going to open it up, rotate, and now I'm here. So we're going to stand back up. I'm going to shift over to the opposite side. So again, notice I'm a little bit more turned out with those toes. I'm going to shift over to that side. Heel stays down, rotate, toes up. Again, we're keeping that chest up nice and tall, so I'm not collapsed down here. So if you find that you're struggling to get down and your position's getting compromised, stay at a height that allows you to keep that nice tall chest, and that's where we're going to work from now. But I can still work knee tracking over the toes and opening up that opposite side hip. Another solution is if you have a bench or a table, you can use that just in front for a little bit of balance. Another option includes just using a dowel. So I can have a dowel here, and then again, it just gives me that extra point of contact, a little bit more confidence in order to work that depth and be able to come back up. So those are all good options too. So that's our Cossack squat. We're going to try a couple more in each direction. I'm going to stand all the way up to the top, shift my weight into that support leg, open up, and back. One more each side. So, hopefully, those hips, shoulders, that rotation, that spine, everything feels nice and warmed up, ready to kind of play with the next sequence of movements. All right, so in our next sequence, we're going to play with some of our crawling positions. We're going to take a look at the bear, and we're actually going to use the bear to sequence into a Spider-Man crawl. And then we're going to also take a look at the monkey so we can get into some cartwheels from that low squat position. So let's first take a look at our bear crawl position first. From here, we go tabletop. Best way to set up is just to tuck those toes and push ourselves back into that A-frame. So we're going to drive the hips for the sky. I'm going to push through the shoulders and try to take that chest through. Again, keep those knees bent as much as you need to. And we're just going to start to walk forwards and backwards. So nice controlled steps. Remember that you're moving opposite hand, opposite foot. There's no need to rush through this. We're just trying to make it nice and smooth and efficient. I can try walking back. Remember that small steps work best. And again, forward. So we're thinking push and lift the whole time. Push through the hands and the shoulders, lifting that tailbone for the sky. Good, so for our next sequence, similar thing, except we're going to keep the hips a little bit lower. And it's actually going to look like our step into our lunge that we were doing before with that A-frame. So I'm going to step up, opposite foot across from the hand. But from here, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to turn those toes so they're going off to a 90. And I'm going to rotate my whole body too. So you'll notice that I'm nice and active through that back leg. I'm pushing through that heel. And now I have this nice opening through that side body under here. So from here, I'm going to drop the hips, but I'm going to think about lifting the shoulders. It's like I'm trying to lift this shoulder for the opposite corner of the room over here. So I'm getting this nice big opening through my bottom side, through my right side here. Now as I take a step up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift my hip for the sky. So think a side hip bridge here. I'm going to reach over with my opposite hand over top. And as I step forward, I'm going to turn those toes again to that 90. So I should be facing the opposite direction. I drop those hips, drive them up for the sky in that side bridge, and then again, reaching over top. Watch as I pivot on that back foot so I can turn those toes to that 90 right away. And I'm super active through here, so I'm not just dumping down through here. I want to try to make this nice big arc. And back up. So again, from here, if I step forward, I'm going to turn those toes, drop the hip, hip comes up, so right now I'm just doing it in place. You can do it in place, or if you have enough room to do a couple steps forward and back, you can use it to travel across the floor. So now that we have a couple of our first movements with the bear and our lunge working into that Spider-Man, let's take a look at a couple movements we can do from the monkey crawl position. So first one we're going to do is just our basic monkey across. We're going to start in that low squat. I'm going to reach across the side, and we're just going to bring those feet behind the hands. So again, remember that we're thinking of that nice quiet landing each time. I'm going to try to control that landing, and the more I can think about keeping some tension so I can float those feet, the more control I'll have to land nice and soft. So that's our basic monkey crawl position. We've done this in the last couple sessions, working that lateral crawling movement. Now what we're going to do is a little bit different, and we're going to use it in order to kind of do a 360, like a little cartwheel. So what I'm going to do is start in that same low squat position, and I want to imagine that I'm basically traveling on a straight line. So I'm going to place my hands and my feet on that line each time I do this movement. So what I want to think about doing is getting my hands in the right position as I start to do this spin. When I start to do this cartwheel, my body's actually going to end up on this side. So I want to start to direct myself that way. So you'll notice that I place my hands with my fingers actually facing backwards behind me. So here, fingers go to the back wall, boom, here. So they're ending up on that same line, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to step over with my feet staying on that same line. So it's actually my back foot that's going to cross over, and I pivot so I can rotate in that 360. So again, placing those hands so the fingers are pointing behind, and then I'm going to step across onto that line again. So let's practice that a couple times. Again, imagining that that line is where we're aiming to place the hands and the feet each time. You notice that when you step through, you have to pivot on that foot to help finish that rotation a little bit. Fingers placed back. You notice also that I'm bringing my hips up nice and high too. And I can land back low. If you need a little bit more energy in order to finish that rotation, what we're going to do next is use that second leg. So it's going to be kind of like a big tail, like a big whip coming around. So same thing, I'm going to point those hands the opposite way. Now when I step across, that second leg is going to sweep forward. So as I stretch and reach out, I use that as a big lever to rotate my body around. So again, here. So it just helps to build that little bit of momentum. And you'll notice that I'm reaching it really long on that big wide arc. It's like this big half circle. It's stretching that leg to the other side of the room and then pulling it back in. Here. And it really helps to whip you back around. Okay. So we have kind of the basics of our low cartwheel. A couple different ways to also build some momentum, staying down nice and low with that leg sweeping around. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get back into our Spider-Man position. So we've been working from stepping up into our lunge, planting that opposite hand, and that rotation. Now instead what we're going to think about is I'm actually going to start to bring myself down nice and low. So we're going to think about bringing that ear down towards the ground. And then again, I'm going to step up, opposite side. So it's the hand that's planted across from the foot. That's the same side. I'm going to try to lower and start taking that ear down towards the ground. So again, here, step. You'll notice that you might need to step a little bit out to the side in order to clear and sink into that hip. Okay. So I'm just going to show it nice and stationary here. You can do the same thing, just alternating sides. If you don't have a whole lot of room, I can just work myself back into that plank, step up. So that's a good place to start, trying to start to bring yourself nice and close to the ground like that. Just like we did with the very first drill in our warm-up, just think about trying to get that ear and that angle. That's the direction you're going. But right now, if you're building that strength, don't worry about going all the way down to the ground. If you're having some success there, and you're able to get yourself nice and low, we're gonna add one more element to this one. So we've stepped forward into our lunge, and we're gonna start to bring ourselves down towards the ground. So I'm here. Now what I'm going to do is, as I come down, I'm going to make a shelf with that opposite hand that my thigh of my bent leg can rest on. Here. So if I can, now what I have is this nice little stacking motion, and I can free up this leg. I'm going to try to extend, bring it back, and back up. So we brought ourselves down. Now I'm going to rest my thigh on that opposite elbow. I can extend and bring it back. So again, play with whatever variation you're having success with. If it's just trying to build that strength, just try to get that bent arm position, start there. If that feels pretty comfortable and you can find that little resting shelf with that forearm to just see if you can get that leg weightless for a second, you can start to build that in. If you can get that whole thing here and extend the leg, that's really awesome. So let's do one more little sequence. It's going to be the last sequence we're going to work on today. And it's going to be from our monkey crawl position. So we have two movements that we started with today. We had our basic monkey crawl, and then we had the cartwheel. So that's it. We're going to try to combine those two in each direction. First, monkey crawl. I'm going to continue that sideways motion right into that low cartwheel. So remember, when you do that cartwheel, we're going to place those hands facing towards the back. monkey crawl, switch the hand position, and back. Awesome. So that's going good. Let's see if we can mix up the order a little bit. So let's start with the same two movements that we did. Monkey crawl. We're going to do a cartwheel. From here, I'm going to carry that momentum across, and then I'm going to redirect it back into a cartwheel the opposite direction. So let's try that again right from the top. We do our monkey crawl pass, turn the hands, and I'm not going to stop this momentum. I'm just going to redirect it back the opposite way. And then we'll add our second monkey crawl in. So the whole thing. Ready to crawl. Cartwheel, shift our weight, shift it back, cartwheel, and then back to the monkey. Let's try two more like that. Really emphasize that shift over so we can start to redirect it back with a little bit of momentum. Last one. And time. Awesome. So it's actually pretty cool. We have maybe 6 or 7 feet of space here. We're able to link two different movements, kind of change the sequence, change the order a little bit, and just have some fun in not a whole lot of room. So that's what I wanted to share with you all today. I hope you had fun with that sequence. My kind of ask is that you work on this sequence this week and then tag us at Third Space Movement on Instagram and just throw it into your stories and just show me what you have. Just play around with it a little bit. Even if you come up with something else to throw into that sequence, that's totally cool. But remember, the base of that sequence is just the monkey crawl in and out of that cartwheel position. Right on. So that was a lot of fun. Have fun with it. Practice it this week and share with us what you have. Awesome. Till next time. See you guys.